Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Inside the Aisle. I'm your host, Nikki Wolf. And if you recognize a drop in energy, it is because this is the 13th time I've tried to record this and I'm about to go insane. So I'm hoping we just stick with this one and you are just along for the bumps, mistakes, word slip ups, because here we are. And now my dogs are barking in the background. So fabulous. Anyways, let's just get into it. So today we are talking everything inflammation. So what creates it, what increases it, and most importantly, what we can do to reduce or eliminate it. Now, before we even dive into inflammation, it's important to discuss, joints and what a healthy joint looks like. No, guys, not that kind. So a joint is going to be a part of the body where two or more bones connect that are going to allow for movement. So shoulders, hips, knees, fingers, hands, everything like that. And there's going to be four main components to a healthy joint. You might be familiar with some. So we're going to start with the ligament, and that's going to be the part that's going to help attach bone to bone and keep them stable and together. Then you're going to find the synovial membrane. And so that's going to be a layer of connective tissue that will line the cavities of the joints. Then you move on to the synovial fluid. So that's that thick liquid that's going to be located between the joints, and that's going to act as a lubricant. So really helping to cushion those joints so they don't do bone on bone. And then lastly, we have our cartilage. So that's that firm, whitish, flexible connective tissue that you're going to find in between the bones. Now, where problems arise is when those cushions, synovial fluid, cartilage, anything like that starts to deteriorate. And that could happen from a number of reasons. So injury and age, maybe an overuse of the joints, or on the flip side, an underuse. Maybe there's not enough movement in the body. Exposure to toxins, here's a big one. Inflammatory foods, so sugar and processed foods. If you've had like a binger the night before and ate a ton of, high carb or a really big dessert, and you woke up the next morning either with a headache or, puffy skin, chances are it's because of that highly inflammatory food from the night before. Smoking, lack of omega-3s, and unaddressed inflammation are all contributors to that deterioration of the cushions. Now, I mentioned unaddressed inflammation, and I just want to distinguish between two different types of inflammation. Just to keep things simple, think of there's a good inflammation, so that's going to be your acute inflammation, and a bad, and that's going to be your chronic inflammation. So acute inflammation, if we get a cut, your white blood cells and swelling and blood is going to flow to the area so it can begin to repair, but also fight against any sort of invaders that want to be creating infection. So that kind of inflammation is good and necessary. But the chronic is when things become unaddressed, or we're doing other lifestyle components that are adding to that inflammation. So again, highly inflammatory diet, not moving our bodies, smoking, and then not doing anything to heal that inflammation. It's going to become chronic and turn into a long-term inflammation that can be pretty painful and even lead to a variety of health concerns. Now, we take inflammation, and I want to connect the dots between inflammation and joint health and pain. So we're going to start off with using an analogy, and you guys know I like my analogies. So I want you to think of your joints as a house. Just like our bodies, our homes need maintenance and care until one day, dun, 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 your house becomes inflamed and it's engulfed by fire and it's burning every part down to the ground. And so I want you to think of that inflammation as fire. Well, our body's inflammatory response is going to be those firefighters who respond to the fire or inflammation. And if it's a small fire, it's generally, somewhat simple to put out that fire. But as the fire continues to burn, those firefighters are going to need additional resources and support to be able to address those big fires. Now, the fire burnt down the house. Now we have rubble on the ground. Well, you still need a place to live. So we're going to have to work on rebuilding that house. And or in the terms of our body, we're going to need to work on rebuilding that cartilage. And so what's important is addressing how do we rebuild it. And we're going to get to that in a second when we talk about some of the ingredients in our joint formula. Now, here's something to mention too. Our joints actually need both kinds of support, because if we're only addressing inflammation, we're never going to rebuild that cartilage. But if we only address the building blocks of the cartilage, our houses will continue to get burnt down over and over and over again. So it's important to make sure we're addressing both. So let's start with inflammation. And Life Seasons Formulas, which is one of my favorite, I know I feel like I say that for everything, is called Inflamex. And this is our inflammatory support product. It has a packed full amount of ingredients that are going to be, highly effective for inflammation. So let's talk about these ingredients and why they work. First off, you're going to find proteolytic enzymes or protease enzymes. I like to think of these as a Pac-Man. It's going to go in the body and eats whatever dead, destroyed, doesn't belong. So think of scar tissue or cysts, anything that really shouldn't be in the body. It's going to help break that down. Now, with that being said, this formula is ideal on an empty stomach. So it's breaking down what shouldn't be in there instead of, the protein from your chicken salad for lunch. Now, there's no harm in taking this formulation with food. It's just going to be more effective on an empty stomach. You're also going to find ingredients like bromelain, which has been, a lot of times it's in like immune and allergy products. And that's generally because an inflammation of the sinuses can create all those traditional allergy responses. So this is going to be helpful at reducing the inflammation by breaking down the protein that actually causes that swelling and bruising. Then we move on to tart cherry. You might be familiar with that. People with gout have used tart cherry to support with that. So it's going to help reduce the stiffness in the joints and decrease uric acid in the body, which can actually promote joint comfort. Then you're going to find boswellia, quercetin, hops, and nettle. And again, these are all commonly used ingredients for anti-inflammatory support. Now, the key big daddy ingredient in this formula is going to be the turmeric. We've all heard turmeric, and it's kind of like, I wouldn't say overused, but we all have heard of turmeric, and most people even know it's good for inflammation. But what most people might not know is the quality, what you're taking, and what it's doing. So most turmeric is bound to, or most supplement companies take their turmeric and bind it to black pepper. What that's going to do is it's going to allow our body to absorb the active ingredient or the active constituent called curcumin in turmeric. So again, if you have a bottle of turmeric and you turn it around, chances are you're going to see curcumin in parentheses. It's not a different thing. It's just the active component of turmeric. So again, a lot of companies take turmeric, bind it to black pepper to help our bodies absorb that curcumin. The problem with that is a lot of people don't respond well to black pepper. It can create gut irritants. It can create even more inflammation. I had a gal who dealt with psoriasis, and she was taking turmeric, and it made her break out even more. So sometimes, maybe if you're listening, you're like, I can't do turmeric. Chances are it's not the turmeric you can't do. It's the black pepper. So that leaves me, okay, Nikki, well then what can we do if I can't do the black pepper? So we use an incredible form of turmeric. So we use a patented form called Meriva, M-E-R-I-V-A. It has the most clinical research on turmeric that exists. And what it does is it takes turmeric and it binds it to a phospholipid, so a fat, which is going to help with the absorbability of that curcumin without any of the side effects. So if you think about like a golden milk latte, turmeric with coconut milk, because you're going to get the benefits and the efficiency of that fat from the coconut milk that's going to help bind to the turmeric to help your body absorb the curcumin. Now, some like little, cafes might throw in a little bit of black pepper because that's what is known to help support the bioavailability of that turmeric. But if you're using a full fat coconut milk, you can opt out of the black pepper if you want, or if it does create that irritant. So This formulation is incredible for everything because here's the thing, it's not just inflammation of the joints. We are experiencing, like I mentioned earlier, that acute inflammation every single day. So maybe it's a headache, inflammation in the head. Maybe, it's a gut dysbiosis or, IBS kind of thing, inflammation of the intestines, inflammation of the prostate, creating BPH. There could be so many different things going on in the body that could use some anti-inflammatory support. So highly recommend this one. Again, ideal on an empty stomach. So let's kind of pivot and go over to our joint formula. So this is going to be Mobility, one of our OGs in the company, really effective. I mean, we have people who've been taking this for years and years and just feel tremendous on it. So if you remember with the analogy we just discussed right now, putting out that fire, that inflammation. So Inflamex, those ingredients are going to be supportive to subdue that fire. But when it's time to rebuild that house or that cartilage and joints, that's where Mobility comes in. So we're going to have chicken collagen, we're going to have MSM and glucosamine, and those are going to be all the building blocks of cartilage in the body. So that's going to be that long-term repair to help build and fix that house. Whereas you're going to see turmeric and bromelain in there for that anti-inflammatory support. So although this isn't targeted for an anti-inflammatory or an inflammation product, you still want inflammation supporting ingredients in here. So again, MSM, chondroitin, and glucosamine are more of the building blocks of cartilage, whereas the turmeric and the bromelain are going to be more for that inflammation response. And a lot of people have asked too, why do we use chicken collagen? So we use chicken collagen over bovine because there's actually studies that show that the chicken collagen, sorry, my dogs are, what? Look how cute he is. This is Benny, if you guys can see on the screen. Hi, bud. So we use the chicken collagen because it's been shown to have more supportive inflammatory and joint health supports. Today is not my day, guys, so bear with me. But it's going to be more supportive for inflammation responses and joint health than the bovine. And also another thing to mention, at the age of 30, collagen production begins to decline, just like, our testosterone and all these other things that we need in our body, they begin to decline. So if you are 30 and up, you should definitely be making sure you are consuming enough collagen in the body. And depletion of collagen can lead to, thinner, drier, and less elastic skin. So maybe you don't necessarily have traditional joint issues, but your skin ain't thriving. The collagen in this formulation is going to be fantastic for that. So we've addressed those ones. Now, a big question a lot of people ask is, can I take these together? So the Inflamex and the Mobility, absolutely. Combining these formulas might help you even see results faster. So it's completely safe. None of the ingredients exceed any upper limits. And again, it can help with the efficacy of the individual ingredients. So if you have to pick between one, I would say if you're struggling more with bone on bone, joint, arthritic pain, go for Mobility. If it's more of just like puffiness and achiness, and maybe you're experiencing inflammation in a variety of areas, I would then go for the Inflamex. All right. So we've got the inflammation kind of covered. Mobility is our bodies are starting to work on building that cartilage. But what if you're in pain and you want something now? Most of the time we either go turmeric or, homeopathics, which are safe in the body, but unfortunately not very effective for chronic pain. Or we go for the opioids or, the over-the-counter, very effective for chronic pain, but very harmful on the kidneys or liver. So we have a best of both worlds, and that is going to be Relievar or Reliever, however you want to pronounce it. We have a daytime version and a nighttime version, which I'll get into. But this formulation is mind-blowing. We actually have clinical studies on Reliever versus a placebo and acetaminophen. And what it showed, first of all, it kicked butt, but what it showed is the Reliever actually helped remove or reduce the pain longer than the acetaminophen, and individuals had to go back less to reliever because it helped relieve their pain for so much longer, whereas they had to continually go back to the acetaminophen to help reduce and relieve that pain. So again, we have clinical studies on that, which is another reason why I love this company. Is we're not just using clinically tested ingredients, we're clinically testing the entire formulations. So that's Relievar. I'll see if I can put in the show notes the link to that study if that's available in the white paper yet. If it's not linked, then I think we're still waiting on the white paper. Regardless, let's dive into this formulation. So the main ingredient here is levotetrahydropalmitine. Say that 3 times fast. LTHP for short. And the L is referring to the way or the direction that chemical bond is sitting. And so what LTHP is, it's an alkaloid found in the cordialis plant. So that's going to have the strong pain relieving properties, but will also be slightly sedative. I'm going to repeat that. Slightly sedative. There is a warning sign on this bottle that says, warning, may cause drowsiness. We'll touch into this. Nothing that you need to be afraid of, but I would just say it's a strong formula, and I would really start low and slow, particularly on this formula. So you have the LTHP. Now, we know opioids are one of the most addictive things out there, and it's, there's an epidemic now of it. And the thing is why they're so addictive is because it takes care of the pain, but also makes you feel really good. So we didn't want to just create a pain relieving product. We also wanted that feel good component. And that's where you're going to find the theanine. So L-theanine is going to be that mood boosting ingredient that's just going to kind of create a relaxed wakefulness. It just makes you feel really good. Then you're going to find white willow. So white willow, the base of that is salicylic acid. That is how they have created aspirin. So it's kind of your natural aspirin. Then you'll find benfotiamine, synthetic form of B1. That's going to be specific for nerve pain. So that's a big contributor to a lot of people's chronic pain, is going to be that nerve impulse or that nerve pain. You're going to find Angelica. So that's really good for like flu-like symptoms. So let's say, you're really sick and your body just like aches. Angelica is going to be supportive for that. Now, ingredient in this that you might be like, wait, why is that in there? Especially if this is sedative, is caffeine. And some of you guys might know caffeine is going to be intended as a vasodilator, meaning it's going to open up the blood vessels so that the ingredients can get in quicker and react to the body and support the body much quicker, because an opioid, they get to work right away. We want to make sure that this isn't going to be something that's going to take 2-3 hours to get into your system. So we do use a little bit of caffeine in here to help with that efficiency and the speed in which we can get the ingredients into the bloodstream. Now, again, may cause drowsiness. You're like, okay, well, there's the LTHP and the caffeine. How does that make sense? Well, if you drink a gallon of CBD and a shot of espresso, technically you're having both, but one's going to be much more, influential in there. And so, yes, you do have caffeine in here, but it's not going to be anything that's going to stimulate or wake you up. It's just intended for that vasodilation component. Also, another thing to mention is vitamin D3. So there's studies that show that individuals with chronic pain and chronic migraines are deficient in vitamin D, which I think most people are deficient in vitamin D and magnesium as well. So I think those are fantastic ingredients to incorporate. Now, let's say you have period pain, back pain, nerve pain, so bad you can't even fall asleep at night. It's like throbbing. You need something to knock you out. Well, Life Seasons created a nighttime version. And so that's going to be Relievar PM. We did pull out the caffeine, even though it was a small amount. We added ingredients like chamomile, lavender, lemon balm, GABA, and 1 milligram of melatonin. If you're concerned with melatonin, check out my latest sleep episode where we just kind of debunk, you guys know the word. We kind of pull back the controversy behind it and make it not as scary of an ingredient to take. If you take it in a low dose and in a formulation, you're not going to have, chances are you're not going to have any repercussions or wake up feeling hungover or just groggy. Just make sure you take it in a low dose and in a formula. But this has been a game changer for so many individuals. I know my dad, so he lives in the mountains. He slipped last year on ice and he didn't have Relievar at home. So he was taking, I think he was taking like some sort of over the counter medication and to help with the pain. But eventually he's like, I don't want to be taking this anymore. But your body is just throbbing in pain. You can't even sleep at night. So when I was able to get him this helped knock him out, and it wasn't going to be harmful for the kidneys or liver, and it was going to help reduce the pain and help him sleep. So I love that we put that in there. And lastly, the final product in our inflammation line is going to be Migra-T. So that's going to be our tension support. Sorry, you hear the dogs in the background. That's going to be our tension support. I will say we have a lot of individuals who feel a quicker and more effective benefit for or relief for their headaches with Reliever, whereas migraines, they get that support from Migra-T. So there is a little bit of a difference between headaches and migraines. I would say if you get headaches, take Reliever. It's going to be that fast acting support. But then if you get migraines, especially chronic migraines, oh my gosh, you guys are being so dramatic. There's probably squirrels out there. That's why. So if you get consistent migraines, this is going to be a formula that you're going to want to keep in your system. Again, you're going to find crucial vitamins and minerals that most individuals are deficient in for those who tend to get migraines on a regular basis. You're also going to find that white willow, which is going to help with the pain. Ginger is going to help, again, getting those nutrients to the areas of the body that they need to be. Benfotiamine, CoQ10, and feverfew, which generally you find those on the shelf isolated. You don't really find them in a formulation. So if you struggle with migraines, I highly, highly recommend getting this product in your system and taking it for a continuous amount of time. Keep Relievar on you if you just need that little bit of boost. But again, start with a lower dose and move slowly. Whether you're 200 pounds, 150, whatever that looks like, start with one, then titrate up. Well, guys, I think we touched upon all the formulations. I hope that clarified how the inflammation works in our body and how we need to support our joint health, and that inflammation is so much more than arthritic and joint pain. It's all over the body, whether that's in a bad way, kind of in that chronic form, or that acute where our body's trying to help heal and protect against invaders. So I hope this episode was helpful for you. And until next time, guys, see you later.